Hi, my name is Mr. D, and today I want to take a look at side-side-side triangle proofs. So we have given AB is congruent to CB and D is the midpoint of AC. We want to prove that triangle ABD is congruent to triangle CBD. So when we're writing proofs using statements and reasons, it's important that before we write any statements or reason within this triangle proof, that we take the given information and we mark up the diagram. And what I mean by this is that if we're starting with AB is congruent to CB, we go to the diagram and we make tick marks on these pair of sides to show that they're congruent. So next we're told that D is the midpoint of AC, and what that means is that if D is a midpoint, it's going to separate this line segment into two congruent line segments. So that means that AD is congruent to CD. And it's important to know that since I used one tick mark for the first pair of congruent sides, I'm going to use two tick marks for the second pair of congruent sides. So the next thing we could do in this proof, since we've used all the given information in the diagram, we notice that between these two triangles that they're sharing a common side. So we can mark this with an X, or we can make three tick marks to show that the next pair of sides that they're sharing are congruent as well. So once we have this diagram marked up, there's four basic triangle postulates, not including the one limited to right triangles, to kind of think about. And notice here, if I kind of draw this quickly, that anytime we have two triangles that share or have three pairs of congruent sides, the postulate side, side, side should jump out at you, which we abbreviate with SSS. And this basically states that if two triangles have three pairs of congruent sides, then those three congruent sides are going to build the same exact triangle. That the angles on the inside are going to be the same as well. So this is one of the postulates we use to prove triangles congruent. And it's important that we recognize the postulate based on the tick marks, because we go from the tick marks to choosing the postulate, and now this is going to help guide how we write our proof. Notice once we start writing our statements, we get rid of the easy statements. And the easiest statement to get rid of is the given information. So the first thing we could say is that AB is congruent to CB, and D is the midpoint of AC. So while it seems excessive, we do have to rewrite the given information in our proof. D is the midpoint of AC. But like I said, this is the easiest information to take care of, because once we write it, the reason why this is true is because this was given to us. So we just write the word given. So we go over to our letters that we wrote over here, and notice by stating that AB is congruent to CB, we established one pair of congruent sides. This is a good way to determine when you're finished writing the proof, is that you have to make sure that you check off everything before you could write your final statement proving the triangle is congruent. So now we go to our next line, and notice we already established the single pair of tick marks as congruent, so now we're going to establish the next pair. We're going to establish that AD is congruent to CD. But now we have to think about, why is this true? Why are these two line segments the same? Well, it followed from the fact that D was the midpoint of AC. So for our reason, we're going to say definition of a midpoint. So definition of a midpoint. So after we write this, it seems a bit excessive, but I'm telling you, this is just going to help you stay organized as you write the proof. We established our second pair of congruent sides. So we go to our next statement, and notice all we have to do now before we close this proof out is establish the final pair of congruent sides. But notice that both of these triangles are sharing the side. So for this statement, we're going to say, since this is where the third set of tick marks is, that side BD is congruent to side BD. Notice since both of these triangles share the same side, we're going to say that it's congruent to itself. And we think about, why is that true? Why would a line segment be congruent to itself? And the name of the property we're going to use is the reflexive property. One helpful way to remember this property the term reflexive property is to think about a mirror. So hang on, let me just finish writing this first. So the way this is going to help you remember it is if you think of a mirror, this line segment would see its own reflection if it looked in the mirror, and you hear the word reflection, it should help you be reminded of the term reflexive property. So that's just like a little helpful way to remember that particular phrase. But now we go over to our initials that we have written here. BD is congruent to BD establishes the third pair of congruent sides between the two triangles. So once we have all of this checked off, we could close out the proof. Remember, the last statement that you're making in any proof is the statement that you're trying to prove. So remember, this statement here, the proof, has to go last. So now we could finally say that triangle ABD is congruent to triangle CBD. And the reason for this, we knew the reason in the beginning, based on the tick marks we made in the diagram. We could just initial it SSS. If you want to be precise, you could write the word postulate next to it, but it's sufficient just to abbreviate side, side, side postulate with SSS. That is usually an acceptable way to justify your statement. Okay, well, this is going to conclude this video on side, side, side triangle proofs. Thank you all for watching, and I hope that this was helpful.